time, we've got a full hour to look at this concept of realizing our potential through sustained diversity. We will make sure we're able to embrace every minute of our session. So thank you all for coming in timely. We greatly appreciate it. My name is David Small. I'm here to make sure everything runs smoothly along the way. And with that, I look forward to helping everybody truly have a great experience. Now, what will we be working on today? We'll be looking at these objectives through our program. We're going to look at building that business case, right? Why should we be working on diversity? We're going to look at the recent research as well as looking at some of those key areas that help us to create that genuine inclusiveness. And then we're going to look at even some of the strategies that will help us get there. So as we're thinking about this, there's a reason why we decided to spend an hour here today. If you would, down in our chat, lower right-hand corner of the screen, which one of these 4 objectives would make the the biggest difference for you as we go through our hour? Go ahead and give us that number in the chat. Which one of these would be most valuable for you? And then make sure you get that set to all participants so everybody can see it. Thank you. Here they come. And it looks like we're getting a good blend of them. Lots of 3s and 4s along the way. Got some 2s and 1s in there also. Wonderful. Because we are going to touch on all of these. I'm thrilled to be working with you, and if you're not familiar with our WebEx, just a couple of things to point out. If you, once again, look here on the right-hand side of our screen, just below our list of names, you'll see there's a raised hand icon, a green check, a red X, even a smiley face there. It's a great way to give us some input. And also, the lower right-hand corner is that chat where you've just entered that number. That's where we're going to do a lot of our input today, as well as, of course, coming on audio and having conversations along the way. Now, to lead us today, we've got 2 great individuals that are going to get us where we need to go during the course of our session today. Our first gentleman is our Vice President of Customer Transformation, somebody I've known for quite a number of years. Love to work with this gentleman, and that is Ursel Charles. So Ursel, do you want to come on and say hello?
Yes, thank you, David. And we are so excited you can join us today. This is really as important and interesting and important topic for us as well. We're excited to share with you some of the concepts of research we've done, as well as our point of view when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. You're in for, I believe, a great time today. We're going to make it very participative, and we want to hear your feedback as well. So please enjoy. And let me turn it over to our colleague. I'll let you introduce her, David, so you can go ahead and introduce Nigel.
Yes. And our other leader today is somebody I've also been very happy to work with. She's our Vice President for the EMEA and the APAC regions, as well as a Global Master Trainer. Please help me welcome Noha El-Ghali.
Thank you so much, David, and it's such a pleasure to be here today and to discuss how diversity has moved from being a buzzword to being a competitive advantage necessity. And this is really what we're going to be discussing throughout the session that we have together. So when we talk about competitive advantage in general, I remember meeting many years ago with the regional division head of the Fortune 500 company I used to work for, and him announcing to me my promotion to head one of the local divisions. I also remember him telling me that I should consider myself very fortunate to have the promotion given my young age and my gender. This was a manifestation of the global company culture at that time, where few minorities made it to the top, and the company in question really struggled keeping talent and struggled growing market share. So despite pioneering the industry, they even had to sell the division years later. So now, after almost 20 years, this company has come a very long way in terms of policies and culture promoting diversity. It's even recognized on Forbes America's Best Employers for Diversity in 2021 list, growing strong as a company. So let us look then at what is this competitive advantage that diversity offers. When we look at competitive advantage, the question as well that is raised here is, why is it a competitive advantage? So for many years, cross-functional collaboration has really been a buzzword and a priority that we as Dale Carnegie have heard and have been working on with our clients across industries and markets. Our clients tell us that the diversity in the thinking process that cross-functional collaboration brings has a tangible business impact. It allows for a holistic and a more creative approach to problem solving, mainly because it ensures buy-in from decision makers, as there is a higher chance that the solution brought forward covers more than one perspective because of the diversity that it has cross-functionally. So different perspectives also allow for innovation. So bottom line, this diversity of expertise is proven to be better for the business. So let us take these same parameters to the broader perspective of diversity, social diversity. So instead of creativity and faster problem solving being limited to exchanges across divisions, it really allows us to have this superpower within each team. So let us look at the business case for diversity from various researches conducted on the topic. Businesses and organizations are recognizing that it's not only the right thing to do to pursue and support diversity, but it offers real benefits. A McKinsey report found that organizations with diverse boards and diverse executive teams were up to 35% more likely to financially outperform their less diverse competitors, which takes us to that last bullet point of better financial performance. In another McKinsey report, it was mentioned that more gender balanced organizations are up to 70% more, have a 70% better return on sales and up to 69% more profitability. So while we look at that, as we were mentioning, it improves creativity, problem solving, but it also hits our bottom line. So let us have a green check from all those of us today who do see diversity as a clear competitive advantage, whether for their organization or in their industry. Wow, David, we seem to be having clearly everybody seeing that, which is fantastic. And this is so true. We do see it so clearly, whether through the researches or with our clients. But let us also look at, and thank you for sharing your views there with the green check marks, because then it gives us also an understanding of how we all perceive things. There are also what we call the visible and the invisible diversity. So what people see, so it's everything on top of the iceberg, and who people are, which is at the bottom of the iceberg. But when we look at diversity, there is also, while it is a competitive advantage, there is also a paradox to diversity. And the paradox is that people thrive in a culture where they are surrounded by others that share their values. One of those values is diversity, so consequently, one needs to be surrounded by people that believe in and are committed to diversity. But diversity might mean sharing the world with people that share values different from one's own. So you see the paradox there. So one is that we're more comfortable with people with whom we share the same visible or invisible diversity traits that we have there. But diversity also means that we share values different from our own. So does diversity come naturally to all? Probably not. Is it part of the culture of an organization because it's stated in their values? Definitely not. Unconscious bias is one that could touch upon many factors, such as those that are listed above on that screen. There is another potentially complicating factor as well that adds to the invisible diversity due to the pandemic. Vast amounts of employees are now working from home because of the pandemic, and this is the next normal. Leaders will then have to manage the face time given to those at the office versus the face time given to those working remotely. The latter not having the same possibility to directly interact with their direct managers, and that could disadvantage them in terms of recognition and upward mobility. The studies since the beginning of the pandemic also highlight that remote working will impact certain groups more than others, such as female workers, young parents, predominantly mothers. So there's an unconscious bias which could impact the reinvigorated diversity efforts, and that organizations and leaders will need to actively be working on countering. So when we are looking at this iceberg, there's a much bigger part of the iceberg that is deep-rooted here that might not be as easily seen, especially with remote work. So when we then talk about diversity, let us first take the time as well to take a deeper dive in defining what do we really mean by diversity. So what is the difference between diversity and inclusion? What about equity? What is then belonging versus inclusion? So in a moment here, in smaller groups, you'll be invited in a moment by David to discuss the definitions with the objective to bring back to the webinar audience the key aha words and concepts that has been shared within the breakout discussion, so that we can really share with each other what are those definitions and aha words that we should all be really familiar with, and how do we differentiate between them. David, would you like to take us to move us forward?
Sure thing, Noha. Thank you. In just a moment, we are going to go into breakouts. We'll spend about 4 minutes or so discussing just one of these 4 words. So the group that's going to include Rhonda in your group, you're going to have diversity. Christy, your group will also have diversity. And Ashley, your group will have diversity. Jeannie, your group will have inclusion. Antoinette will have inclusion. And Bernadette, your group will have inclusion. Lois, Pamela, and Patty, your groups will have equity. And then Ellen, Robert, and Audrey, your groups are going to work on belonging. And so how are we going to get into those breakout rooms? In just a moment, you're going to get a pop-up on your screen that's going to ask you to either start or join a breakout. Click yes to that. Click yes to the second pop-up that's going to ask you to bring your audio over. Once you've got that, you'll be in your breakout rooms. Go ahead and have that conversation. As Noha said, be focusing on some of those aha, those concept words. And when we come back, we will be putting those into the chat and seeing what we've come up with. So I'm going to unmute everybody. If you do have background noise and need to mute yourself in the main room, all you need to do in the breakout room is click on your name. Once you've clicked on your name, then you can hit that mute button in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. Everybody's unmuted. Click on that. First pop-up. Either start or join your breakout. Click. your audio over. And Audrey, you should have a pop-up on your screen. Start your breakout. Go ahead and click on that pop-up. Okay, Keisha, I'm going to switch it over to you. You should have a pop-up on your screen now. If you click on that pop-up to start your breakout, there we go. And then click that second pop-up, everybody, there, and you'll be able to bring your audio over. Kara and Jennifer, you should have a pop-up on your screen asking you to join a breakout. Same thing for you, Cliff. Bobby.
And now we have to think about whether or not we can. So, just so you know,
and Yvonne, you should also have a pop-up on your screen to bring that over. I gave about here is a great example of that. Her job, not all of her job, on the fact that she had cancer and had treatment that impacted. When you're looking at the restarting the timing. The ball goes to you, right, Ursel? There you go. All set. They should be back in about 30 seconds.
I think it goes back to Noha.
Noha? Okay. Yeah. I have my notes. It goes back to you after the ball. I have no clue what I meant by that. I think it means bowl. And welcome back, everybody. Everybody's back in the main room. Go ahead and, if you would, depending on your group, just go ahead and start with a D, an I, an E, or a B, and then hit a colon there. That just lets us know which word you're actually describing. And then put some of those aha words there in the chat. Let us know what you're describing there as we're doing it. Welcome back, everybody. What are the aha words that you came up with? All yours, Noha.
Fantastic. Thank you, David. So we'd love to hear more. Okay, just talking about in terms of diversity here. Nancy, you're talking about representation. Interesting. Nancy, would you like to go off mute and tell us more? What is representation for you, for the team you're in? Are you able to go? Oh, somebody found as well the writing tool. Okay, well, let us look at more. These are really interesting. So for belonging, Robert, you're mentioning together, camaraderie, alignment, rapport, affinity, association. Great. Thank you so much for sharing all of those. These are really interesting, and definitely agree with you, Sue, that in terms of equity, it's respect, acceptance. So these are really interesting. No problem. Thanks, Jacqueline, for letting me know. If you can then write it down in the chat, that would be great. Antoinette, I, in terms of inclusion, is including all thoughts and ideas. For sure, and thank you for sharing all of those aha words that you have shared together in the breakout room, because a diverse and inclusive culture, as you have mentioned here, means every employee is supported, accepted, respected, and safe at work. And here we're not talking about physical safety, but psychological safety that we'll talk about in a few moments. And this type of environment is really what boosts employee morale and performance. So as the main ways to measure diversity in organizations, let us talk a bit more about this and let us see the ways to measure. And there are certain ways that are more easily measured and ways that usually what we see in organizations that pay equity and recruitment are two of the areas that are measured the most, and I'm sure that we're all very familiar with it. So let us look a bit more at retention, advancement, and representation. When we're talking about retention, because hiring diverse talent is not enough. It's the workplace experience that shapes whether people remain and, more importantly, thrive and therefore are productive and efficient within the organization. Advancement, on the other hand, it's in addition to monitoring the representation of minorities at the top in general, companies also need to measure the percentage promoted each year as a share of the total cohort and compare that with the promotion rates of others. Because that is directly linked with representation that many of you have mentioned in the chat. Because the representation, it's great to have certain minorities go up the ladder, but then what if they are they concentrated in a specific area within the organization? And so is it full representation or is it representation within very specific areas of the organization? Let us hear more from you as to how does your organization today see this? And we'll have two quick polls there just to see how is it. The first question is, consider the executive team or C-suite in your organization. What is the percentage of ethnic minorities and of women in your organization today? David, over to you.
Thank you. Yes, and so we've got this here of your organization. What is those percentages? And you're going to get a pop-up on your screen. And all you need to do is click yes, or click the percentage that you feel is accurate. And there you go. Click on that. Go ahead and click on the first one is about women. What percentage of the women are there? And then the second one is about racial diversity. Click your answers. Once you've clicked each of those, make sure you hit the submit button in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. Okay, about another 15 seconds on that. Make sure you hit that submit button once you have entered your percentage for both of those questions. About another 10 seconds. Once you've voted, make sure you hit that submit button for your answers to be recognized.
So how is that looking like?
And as we close up the poll here, absolutely, for percentage of women, our top vote getter is the 20% number, and our top vote getter in the ethnic minority is also that 20%. And here we go. There are the results for everyone to see.
Thank you so much for sharing. So, and again, there is no right or wrong number, and we'll be talking more about it now, but it's just to give us a bigger perspective there as to how do we see it and how does our organization see it. Well, just very quickly as well, before we move ahead, is that, well, how well does your senior leadership team mirror your customer base? For example, one of the FMCG companies we work with, 80% of their customer base is women and 20% of their senior leadership team is women. It's quite a disparity there. What about your organization? David, off to you. David?
Yep, there you go. Sorry about that. Give us a green check if your organization does mirror your customer base. Red X, no. How about a smiley face if your organization's on its way? You might not be there completely yet. It is on its way, though. So green check, you do mirror it. Red X, not really. Smiley face, you're on your way.
Yes, and as we see some of these checks come in, we see that there are some that's truly representative, those populations that mirror our customer base, and we see that there's opportunities in many of our organizations that we see an opportunity that we can improve or at least have the opportunity to address some of having our senior teams mirror our customer base as well. As we did our research as well, we've identified some similar numbers, similar to what we've done in the survey as well. In our research, diversity among Fortune 100 senior executives, we found only 25% of the total C-suite positions are held by women. So that's kind of on average to our 20% we've just done with the poll. And just only 16% of the total C-suite positions are held by racially diverse executives. So again, we have tremendous opportunities as we walk into a more global organization, more dispersed organization as we use technology to move forward. So we could look at ways that we could be more impactful in organizations based on diversity, equity, inclusion. So we do have opportunities here to address these as organizations embrace diversity, equity, and inclusion. But there's still some remaining challenges. In another survey we did with BCG Global Diversity Survey in 2018, we divided 3 obstacles. What are the obstacles to diversity and inclusion in my company? And here's what we found in the 3 areas of the light blue slide would be racially, ethnically diverse employees. The dark blue slide would be female employees, and the purple slide would be LGBTQ employees. And we found in that category that there are still percentage of diversity when it comes to recruiting, retention, advancement, and leadership. In the chat, what are some of the challenges that you're finding in your organization? If you see, based on what are some of the obstacles, is recruiting when it comes to these opportunities for diversity, where are the areas in your organization? Is it recruiting, is it retention, is it advancement or leadership commitment? What do you believe is one area in your organization, if we chose to address it, if the organization would address it, really can make improvement in these areas? And again, our like to see improvement. We might put anybody on the spot. We just love to hear some of your points of view as well. So in what areas do you feel, and just put it in the chat, your organization can be more things. See, Marianne, geographical location. Thank you, Marianne. Of course, more about leadership commitment and retention. Thank you, Candace. Again, more on recruiting in the industry as well. In our industry, we see a lot of terms of retention, advancement opportunities. Absolutely. Attracting a lot of women in logistics is not the industry that attracts. So maybe the industry recruitment, so we have to look at ways that when our culture or our organization have not been diverse, we can look at it being more diverse. So a lot of great opportunities here, and I really look what Marjorie said as well, the company reputation as we are being more aware and alert when it comes to these topics. So we all can do better, and we all have opportunities to improve when it comes to these areas of diversity and inclusion. We realize as we move forward that Diversity only thrives in an inclusive environment. In other words, inclusion just doesn't happen. It has to be something that we can do. And from our perspective and our research, we found that diversity is primarily an outcome that you can measure, just like we've been able to measure with these polls and these insights we've been able to do just with this in the beginning of the program. So the inclusion is the mechanism, is the tool we use to be able to do it. And equity is what helps us accelerate the process. You know, and inclusion means authentically and transparently bringing everyone together, just certainly to the comments you've all left in the chat, the individuals, the groups, the process, activities, in a way we can all share power to move our organizations forward. And that's a really important part. How can we all come together to not just work together, but to go along together to drive the results that we have? When looking at this type of having this understanding that inclusion is paramount to diversity to be successful, we decided to say, well, what are the things about our model? And again, we want to identify it. So this is our D&I point of view. We really believe that genuine interest and self-confidence are really important at all levels of organization, where individuals, contributors from the very top of the organization as well can have more interest in this product, as well as have more interest in this topic, as well as more confidence to be able to demonstrate and create opportunities to be a more inclusive culture. We believe that once you have cultural awareness and competencies, it creates genuine environment inclusion. From that standpoint, we can empower organizations to be more equitable in our systems we've talked about previously, and through being more equitable, we can sustain diversity in the long run. So it's an effort. Diversity, equity, inclusion is not a side project. It's not a project you can put on the slide. It has to be inclusive of the vision, mission, and values of an organization. It has to be something an organization is committed to as we move forward in being able to provide this to our customers and to our clients that we serve in our organization that we be part of. So what is cultural awareness? When you think about cultural awareness, what is your definition? When you think about cultural awareness, why don't you put in the chat, what are some of the things that comes to mind to you when you think of the term cultural awareness? What is cultural awareness? This is our definition, the ability to recognize, appreciate nuances of culture and background. But what is your definition? When you think about cultural awareness, what are some of the things you all think of? All right? So let's see some of your responses in the chat. What is cultural awareness? Absolutely, Robert. Maybe the way we behave as a group. Any other thoughts? Cultural awareness. All right, Nicole, seeing different approaches, unbiased understanding of others, respecting different behaviors. Oh, I love this, John, as well as the other one, Jeannie, being in this together. And at the same time, we have to also be aware of our own biases and our own implicit, unconscious bias that we do as well. So cultural awareness is what I like to call are the rules. It's the rules that we have that helps us create the environment so that we could be more like our new generation is saying, more woke about the differences and the opportunities that we have to be more respectful, more engaging, more collaborative, more innovative about creating an inclusive group. So it's about how aware we are in our culture. And I call that, what are the rules of our environment that helps us be more engaged to understanding what this opportunity provides for us when it comes to diversity and inclusion. Now, here's what we have identified. Cultural awareness without providing competency to our employees and our organization can possibly lead to frustration. Right now in the world that we live in today, particularly, I know we have a global audience with us today, but even we see with some of the current situations happening in the U.S., we are all more culture aware, whether we want to hear it or not, because it's on our news programs and it's things. So our employees are coming to work every day, and they're all more culturally aware of what's happening. At least they're being made aware based on what we see. So these are all about the rules of what we have. So, but you can create rules and have this sense of awareness, but without giving competencies to individuals to have discussions, conversations, insights about their feelings, their experiences, their background, it could possibly lead to frustration. So if you're going to have an inclusive culture, it's not just important to have the topical information or just to have the sense of awareness what happens, but what are some of the tools that we can provide our employees and our organization to be more successful when it comes to having a diverse and inclusive culture, so we can address some of the equities. So it's certainly to your point, Marjorie, it is about our rules of engagement. This is what cultural awareness is all about. So what is cultural competency? Cultural competency is giving everyone, it starts with confidence. In other words, let me step back a second. Cultural awareness has everything to do with how interested we are as an organization to be successful, from an individual contributor as well as an organizational awareness that create those rules. Cultural competencies are the tools. And it starts with self-confidence, building confidence in people to step up, speak up, and to give their points of view, and to be listened to and heard. And because we're going to talk about psychological safety in a moment, are we creating a psychological safe environment where people can give their thoughts, their feelings, or even their disagreements on policy processes and systems without being marginalized, without being eliminated or even categorized, if you will. So we have to be able to provide the skills, the rules, and what I call those tools, the competencies. These are the skills that people have on how we can engage with each other, empower each other, communicate with each other, so that we can have robust conversations that we can take our opportunities to move forward in this area. But there are certain things you got to be aware of as well. Cultural competency, without creating awareness, or cultural awareness may lead to indifference. Many of the skills we empower our people and individuals to have are great skills: listening, communication, innovation, problem solving, conflict resolution. We can have all those things in our day-to-day business, but if we don't make our organizations more aware of how our organization or how we may be marginalized or not included, not be more inclusive, it could lead to indirect indifference. So we want to make sure that we have both. Both are extremely important to an outcome. When you think about your organization, and I'm going to ask to choose a side, what do your organization need to be? Do you need to be more culturally aware, or you need more cultural competence? When it comes to diversity, equity, inclusion, in the chat, what do you think your organization would stand? Do you think we need to have more of a cultural aware organization, or you could put cultural competency organization, or both? What do you see? Where do you feel your organization is at this point? Do you need more cultural awareness, cultural competency, or both? Absolutely. Like we're seeing a equal dispensation of both, and we've seen a lot with competencies as well. And one of the reasons we agree with some of the competencies is we've been aware many organizations have had long-term diversity, inclusion, equity, inclusion initiatives, and our employees are more aware. So having the skills to be able to move forward is really important as we embrace this very important and relevant topic today. So here's some inclusion roles. It takes both for not just effective training, but it takes both to have a powerful culture. Without, like I said, without having cultural awareness, without having competency leads to frustration, and cultural competency without awareness leads to indifference. We don't want our participants, more importantly, we don't want our employees feeling powerless and certainly not marginalized. So we have to understand that it takes both, and we need to be able to create the rules and the tools to be more aware. So as we move forward with this, we really need to understand that in Dale Carnegie, I believe that we've been in the inclusion business for a very long time, for 108 years, and we provide people principles or actions people can take to create more of an inclusive environment. And these are all about the rules. It could be guidelines, principles, values an organization would have. And these are just out of our 30 human relations principles in our Dale Carnegie Golden Book. I think David's going to put a copy of this in the chat for you to take with you for your participation today, is that these are just 5, I believe I'm counting 5, right? 5 of the main principles that helps us create a more awareness on how we can engage one another. And there's a link in them. Become genuinely interested in other people. Be a good listener, encourage other people to talk. Make the other person feel important and do it sincerely. Try to honestly see things from another person's point of view. give the other person a fine reputation to live up to. So we believe that everyone has inherent greatness. And we believe that no matter what culture, background, insight, and if we have an opportunity to outreach and engage, here are just 5 of the practices out of 30 that we can use to help create a more inclusive culture for your organization. So this is just some of the actions that you may be able to take. 5 of 30 actions we can all take to be more impactful and inclusive in this environment as well. Which one right now resonates? If your organization could be more culturally aware, put the principal number in the chat. Which one do you feel would help now in your organization? And saying, if you look at these, just out of these 5, yes, Charmaine, be a good listener, encouraging others to talk to themselves. We've seen a lot of 17, which is my favorite, trying to honestly see things from the person's point of view. 28, giving the other person a fine reputation to live up to. So why do we have this here? Because we have opportunities every day that we can make a difference in our organization when we choose to take the simple steps of being more culturally aware and having the skills to be culturally competent as well. So we have to be able to prepare people, individuals, just like these principles we just shared, to show genuine interest and have the confidence to create so that people feel they could be part of the larger organization. So, and diversity inclusion, it starts from the top, but it excels from the bottom. It starts from the top of our organization when our executives and our leaders really casting a vision for what diversity, equity, inclusion is all about. But it takes every person to be included, participate, and having the wherewithal, the awareness, as well as the skills to move forward and being successful in that area. So now let's take an opportunity. I'm going to turn it back over to Noha, and she's going to bring us some insights in regard to psychological safety. So back to you, Noha.
Thanks a lot, Ursel. And yeah, when we talk about psychological safety and linking it to what Ursel has just mentioned, with all the responses as well in the chat, yes, for us to be able to listen, well, people will need to talk. And so part of preparing people to succeed is really providing them with this needed psychological safety that refers to a person's perception of the consequences of taking an interpersonal risk, meaning to share an opinion, speak truth to power, raise a difficult issue, or even just ask a question that might not be as commonly asked as, or as asked as often as others. So it's essentially about whether or not people fear being seen in a bad light or treated as ignorant, incompetent, negative, or disruptive if they take such a risk. So, and it's not necessarily by having been said no to asking a question. It could be a roll of eyes. It could be many different things that would just get a person not to talk, although people would say, I'm here to listen. So the psychological safety really is such a huge component of diversity and inclusion, because this is what and it's a key component of inclusion, because it's either I give the right vibes or not. So creating such psychological safety is something that we've taught as Dale Carnegie for a very long time, even if it had a different name and it didn't have that specific name that we talk about now, because Dale Carnegie recognized the idea and integrated it into the human relation principles that we've used for decades that Ursel has just shared. So understandably, research on psychological safety is growing because diversity and inclusion is growing in importance. So let's look at some practical ideas as well for assessing it. On the screen here, we can see these are outcomes of psychological safety. This is what people would be saying based on our research that Dr. Amy Edmondson has actually shared in a TED Talk on building a psychologically safe workplace. So let me give you just, give us just a few seconds there to read those 9 statements, actually, that people could be saying in regards to an organization. Well, now that we've just taken the time to read that, which one of those statements does your organization do really well? And let's put that in the chat and let's share. This is really a statement that we believe our people in our organizations would be saying. Yeah, thank you, Kevin. So I'm comfortable getting and giving honest feedback, and that is really so key. Many of you had mentioned it as well regarding listening earlier. Ellen, you mentioned my unique skills and talents are valued, and that is so key for diversity. Obviously, we don't want everybody being the same, but we want that additional input. Valentina and Angela, you've mentioned, I feel like people here know and like the real me. That's a powerful one as well. Well, several of us, Jennifer, Cara, you've mentioned the second one as well. I feel able to bring up problems and tough issues without fear. Well, that is really, you know, thank you so much for sharing all of those. And it shows the culture of the organizations that you represent today, which is fantastic. Let us make it a bit more difficult on us. And let us look at which ones of those would we say that we need to see more of in our organizations. Okay, so Mary, I feel able to bring up problems and tough issues without fear. That's a tough one in many organizations, definitely. Tough one, Kevin is saying tough one, probably number 7. I feel like people here know and like the real me. Yeah. Several of us mentioned number 3, Christy, Candace, people here do not reject others for being different. This is really just to share with us and to show us as well that there is always room for improvement. Diversity and inclusion always carries a lot more that we could be doing. And a word of caution here is that to be careful about the surveys that look maybe almost too good to be true, good overall, because that probably or usually do not reflect the different perspectives of the minorities. So thank you for sharing this. And the next step is to really look at, okay, what do we do with that? How do we encourage psychological safety even more? And Ursel, over to you.
Navid, thank you so much. Thank you, Navid. What we just did is give you an example of how to create cultural awareness or more about the role so people will feel included and engaged. And this is one of psychological safety is just as trust is important to an individual, psychological safety is important or even more important to the organization where people with these outcomes that we see, these 9s. Now, one of the tools that are important is how do we equip individuals to practice giving feed forward, to get insights about something they may feel that they do differently as a result. Maybe someone has identified an unconscious bias or something, or delivering maybe a microaggression and they have not been aware of that and it's been brought to their attention. Or maybe they're challenged with a situation. What if we can provide a tool to our employees to give not just feedback, but feed forward? How can I be better at? And you pick one element, one area that you want to improve. Then you find a trusted person that you can partner with, someone you trust, that have a level of trust with. You ask that person with 2 suggestions for how I can face this opportunity or situation in the future. And then you're going to be focused with all your attention on giving you the their advice without interrupting and say, well, I tried that before, well, you don't understand. We're going to listen. And at the end of the thing we're going to do is we're not going to judge, rate, or critique the suggestion. We're going to only say thank you, which means at that moment we accept this feed forward and we will contemplate on how we will use it moving forward. So I'll be very quick. I'm going to ask David, our excellent moderator and producer. Here's one of the challenges I have. Sometimes when we started talking about topics relevant to diversity and inclusion, particularly about minority challenges, many times I see some of my core's body language change, and I can see that it's either a difficult topic or one of indifference. So, David, how do I do? What do I do? What's recommendation you have for me in the future when it comes to when I start seeing or feeling that my peers are indifferent about topics which are important to me when it comes to diversity and minority involvement? What would recommendation have for me?
Well, one of them that you might be able to do is maybe start building off of something that's important to them. Find the common ground there, and as you point out and discuss something important to them, they may reciprocate and now want to discuss something that's important to you. The other part might be lead with, the other option might be lead with what's in it for them and make sure we're talking in terms of their interests. I know many times we all want to start with what's interesting for us. So those are two ideas.
Great. Thank you so much, David. This is just a brief example of the possibilities we could give to our employees when we give them tools to operate on topics, could be which have a sensitive nature, topics that are challenging or sometimes even critical to discuss, that the focus is not just on the culture we're in, but ourselves and how we can be better contributors in that culture. So this is an example of one of the tools we can provide moving forward. Now, the next two slides is just how can we make a diverse training work in our organization? When you're looking at training, empowering, equipping people around cultural awareness and cultural competency, make it a positive experience. Make the training voluntary. You can't, I like to say in leadership, you can't push a rope. You can't force things on people. So make it voluntary. Try different ways to engage and use multiple instructional methods as we attempted to demonstrate on this call. Have a sustainment plan as part of all the training. In other words, the training is the insight, the sustainment is the application of those insights. As leaders, all contributors need to desire and model that desired behavior. And also make the training a larger part of a broader plan. Again, diversity, equity, inclusion is not a side project. It's not something to be done in a sideline. It's not a special project. It's the way, as I believe, that organizations should choose to do business in the future. And then maybe one of these six that really resonate to you maybe are all the six of the things you could take in terms of being able to create a more training that's really empowering and beneficial to your environment. And finally, what else can you do? Really, diversity, equity, inclusion starts with ourselves. Be an avid reader of the topics. Get informed. There's so many different topics. Practice asking for feed forward on how you get better, just like the demonstration we gave today. So we can always, no matter where our organizations are in the area of psychological safety, or cultural awareness, or cultural competency, or even if I'm not done anything related to diversity, equity, inclusion, we could always start with ourselves. Be avid learners. My dad told me readers will be leaders. I've been reading all my life on subject matter that's interesting to me, and there's certainly a lot of great, interesting topics that could become more well-informed about this as well. If you're in a leadership position, here's some things you can do. Make sure that how can we prioritize diversity and inclusion? What are the ways, as Noha mentioned earlier, that we can measure diversity and pursue genuine inclusion? Nothing that's forced, but something that people are wanting to participate. Examine, ask, listen, evaluate, and validate the measures you're taking. Make sure that our training address both the skills, the rules, and the tools, or the awareness and the competencies. And again, make training a part of a larger effort to support diversity. I think in every training, as we are looking at within our organization, in every program, every situation, every course that you deliver, what's part of your program is supporting inclusion and diversity. And last and certainly not least, as leaders, the body always follows the head. I can attach my head from my body, lead by example. These are all great steps and techniques that we can use to move forward. So as we close today, we've been really excited about this. If you go to Ideal Carnegie website, you can find more about how to sustain diversity, achieving inclusion through cultural awareness and cultural competency. Download this white paper. Now, here's another appeal. We really appreciate your time today, and I hope it's been, hopefully there's some concept you've learned that you can apply within your organization, or more importantly, if you have even more interest how we can help you get started in this really strong and powerful and relevant topic today, please email myself or Noah El Dali at his email addresses, or better yet, if you want more information on how we can meet and reach out to you, go to your chat and to panelists only. Give us your information. Give us your information how we can reach out to you and really help you in this process of getting started. Here's what I realized. We're becoming more digitally, all organizations more remote-based, and we have now becoming more digital transformation organizations where we're now reaching the world. When we reach the world, we automatically, we choose not to become more diverse. So this is not a topic of a timing, it's a topic of the time. So please, we certainly appreciate you all being here today. Please let us know how we can help serve you when it comes to such an important and relevant topic. Thank you for being a part.
Thank you all. Make it a wonderful day. Make it a wonderful rest of your week. Thank you all for attending and joining us today. If you are looking for that exit sign, it is that X in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. We'll be here for a few more minutes, though. If anybody has any questions, feel free to stick around and ask those questions. And as Rochelle said, if you'd like us to reach out to you, just let us know in the chat, and we'll get in touch with you. Noha or Rochelle, do you want to answer that question about the PowerPoint?
Yes, I believe that we're going to get copies of the presentation and possibly recording. I'll get with Brandon Stoll. We're going to talk about how to disseminate this to all the different individuals on this call. Thank you, Tracy. We have everyone's email addresses, so we'll be able to get that.
And we will be closing the room up shortly. If you get a pop-up that says you've been removed from the room, please don't take it personally, but we are still here in case anybody does have any questions. Either feel free to come off mute and ask the question or type it in the chat, either one. Your mute is blocked. There you go. Anna, you are now unmuted. There you go.
Thank you very much, David. Thank you, so I just wanted to tell you that this is so interesting, and I find something specific from different countries. For instance, in Mexico, we have different approach for diversity and ethical situations, such as the U.S. So these deep concepts can bring even though more diversity inside our own concepts. So this is bringing me a huge scope of view. So thank you very, very much.
Absolutely, and we'll work more with you. In fact, that's know-how and our next steps to take as to how do we roll this out and understand the international nuances, and how do we roll this out to be an effective program internationally. We do believe it's going to have a lot of credibility as we move forward. I'm getting calls daily from people from around the world about this topic and how we can address it. So thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Arcel, to start considering all these concepts. So have a great day, guys.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye.
right, David, we'll only make 2 more minutes. We've got 3 attendees left.
Hi. Okay. Can we talk for a second about Joan Ramirez?
Sure.
What do you want to pay her for 20 hours?
I don't know.
Don't feel uncomfortable. Just make a decision.
I recognize those voices.
I know.
I recognize those voices. There you go. All right.
All
So
right.
it's just us church mice now.
There
There
we
we go.
Nice job, really nice. Let it flow well. We got right there at the bottom. We were able to demonstrate all the constructs and got a host of. I love the participation like we do, and
Yeah.
you know, hopefully we get a copy of those chats as well that we can come back to. And
Yep.
really good.
I've got the chats. If you guys want the chat, I can email that too. We also have the polls. Sorry about that with the polls. I wrote the question as.
David, first, can you please stop the recording?
Oh, you're absolutely right. I apologize for that. There
No
you go.
problem.
Thank you.